What is going on, everyone? Welcome into Bayou Bengals football. So let's get into it. So I wanted to talk about DJ Chester. So DJ Chester was one of their big-time recruits LSU landed this year. I was a big fan. I'm a big fan of his skill set. I think he's got a really fantastic skill set. I think this guy, if you watch his high school tape, he's the ultimate guy that really was devoted to putting people on a highlight team. There was plays he just completely drive guys out of the play. Just completely knock guys back, have them completely under control. So that's just what kind of power and strength DJ Chester has. So, yeah, he is a dude. And then now it sounds like, Brian Kelly said they're playing him, they're moving him to center. Marlon Martinez has moved to guard. I really like both of those guys. I went back. There's really not a lot to evaluate because Martinez hasn't played a whole lot at LSU. I went back and watched some of his high school tape. And like DJ Chester, this is a guy that's just an excellent run blocker, can really get into people, drive them out of the play, really dominant, strong. So Marlon Martinez, DJ Chester, two guys to keep an eye on. They're guys getting a lot high praise right now from Brian Kelly, and these are guys that have it. Martinez has experience anyways. DJ Chester, really good players. So talented players. We'll see if they break into the starting five. So that's what Brian Kelly's whole message was. We just want to see which guys can break into the starting five, and they like their starting five. It's a strong, solid starting five unit. But kind of like I touched on yesterday, if you really want to win a national championship and do something special, I know depth is great, but you really want to get your best players on the field starting at all times. So certainly something to keep an eye on, whether DJ Chester and Marlon Martinez crack the starting five, and if they do so, which position are they at? It sounds like DJ Chester, they really like him at center. I think he could be really strong at guard or center. I mean, showed the ability to even play some tackle. I don't know if that's probably his strongest suit in college, but yeah, in high school, you saw they moved him into guard. You saw some flashes of how dominant he can be on the interior run blocking. He just can really just get off the ball and just drive into someone. As a man-to-man run blocker, he can just really demoralize people. Like there was plays where, not just when he was man-to-man blocking, his guy, he could just seal off the edge. His guy was fully under control. There was no way that defender was getting off that block and making a play. So hopefully, I know you're not going to see a whole lot of complete dominance like that from Chester at the college level, but you're going to see he should have some really good plays and do a lot of nice things, and you will see some flashes of dominance, I believe, from DJ Chester. Even if it's not as much this year, it will be certainly in the future. Guy that was a big time recruit. I think he was their third or fourth highest ranked recruit by 24/7 Sports. So talented player. Keep an eye on Chester and Marlon Martinez. So yeah, I want to touch on Brian Thomas. I kind of want to retract some of the statements I've made about Brian Thomas. So I think Brian Thomas has a higher upside than I initially thought. Now, I don't think he's going to be an elite. I don't think he's a true prime candidate to have an elite breakout 1,000-yard type of season, but I think Brian Thomas, at the end of this year, you could be talking about a 800-yard season, maybe 5, 6, 7 touchdowns, where he is super productive and has his best season yet. I think that's what Brian Thomas is capable of. But when I really break down Brian Thomas's skill set, I see a guy who is good after the catch, not great. He's got good hands. He can get involved in the screen game. He has effective single moves that help him get open on slant routes. He can get open on in-breaking routes, out-breaking routes. So, yeah, Brian Thomas, higher floor than a little bit higher ceiling than I initially thought. This guy who, like I've touched on, has a high floor, but the more you watch Brian Thomas, the more you really get an appreciation for the all-around skill set he has, and uses his size and length pretty well. Can go up and win some contested catches, especially in the end zone. You saw that was on full display in the Florida game, and yeah, so I like Brian Thomas's game. I think he's going to be. I think to me, if LSU does something special this year, wins the SEC or wins the national title, I think you see a really productive year from Brian Thomas, but not necessarily a dominant campaign, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I expect big things of Brian Thomas this year, and you got to believe that kind of like what I was just getting at. If LSU does, say they win the national title, you got to believe that Brian Thomas, that this would be you probably would see his ceiling reached as far as his full skill set on display, and they get them getting him the ball, him displaying his full run after the catch ability, his top end play throughout the course of a whole season would be on full display, and his best stat line that he'll probably have in college, So, and that's the thing. If you look at teams that win it all, usually they're kind of next level. They're next guy. Usually they're good players, maybe not their difference makers like Harold Perkins, Campbell, Emory Jones. Maybe not Mason Smith. Maybe those guys have really dominant campaigns. But if you look at teams that win the national championship, it's kind of the next. I think Brian Thomas, when you're talking about some of the best players on the LSU team, I think Brian Thomas is in that strong second tier of best players. So when you look at teams that win the national title, it's really those guys have their absolute best season they can. So expect a big time. If LSU does something special, Brian Thomas will be a guy that will be a heavy contributor to that. But yeah, so if you're an LSU fan, you have an idea, an appreciation for Harold Perkins' skill set. This is a guy that's just an absolute beast. His acceleration, burst, play speed is just off the charts for Harold Perkins. You watch this guy, it's just like it doesn't even look real how good he is at changing direction. Just so fun to watch. His lateral quickness just helps him so much working through traffic. And so last year when I wasn't following LSU as closely, I was looking at the recruiting class and I saw they landed Harold Perkins. You look at his recruiting profile, 5-star linebacker, number 1 linebacker recruit coming out of high school. And with all that being said, you expect big things, and you expect that he's going to cut, or he's eventually going to make an impact, but maybe not as a true freshman. And I was wrong to assume that. This guy just came in right away and really just looked like he belonged. And whatever position LSU fills for him this year, you have to believe he's gonna thrive and find a way to make plays. And he's just one of those guys that, like to me, his movement skills are so elite. Like I'm watching him, like his highlights. I'm watching him against Mississippi State, and I'm going like his strength in power, like speed to power when he rushes, is really nothing nothing great or even elite. But he moves so freely, and his side-to-side movement and his ability to work through traffic and keep an eye on the play and instincts, like that combination of elite skills makes up for him maybe not being the strongest guy in the world. So that's what stands out to me about Harold Perkins. It's just a guy, how well he moves. It looks so easy for him. He has a movement skills where he just looks like he was born to play football at a high level. So we'll see what happens with Harold Perkins this year. He's going to wear number 4. I expect big things, and he's just going to save so many yardage and just the amount of tackles. And this guy that just as a line, you see him running and chasing down ball carriers as a lineman is just incredible to watch. So yeah, Harold Perkins, just a super fun player to watch, and it truly an elite difference maker with an elite skill set, a guy that's going to be drafted high in the NFL draft and going to play in the NFL for a long time. So that leads me to the next thing is Brian Kelly said something interesting. He said, he said something along the lines of, we don't really have 5 NFL first-round picks on this team. And I'm thinking, and it kind of makes me wonder for a second. I'm going like, and I'm kind of counting their guys. I'm thinking like, to me, if you're talking about in the future, so Will Campbell, Harold Perkins, these are guys that Emory Jones, these are guys that are not going to be eligible to the 2025 draft. But I'm thinking like, you take those 3, could be first round. Maybe Emory Jones could be a toss-up. He could be a guy that slips second, third round. He does have some slight deficiencies in his game. When I mean slight deficiencies, I mean that he doesn't really do everything at like a very good elite level, but he does a lot of things well. So maybe Emory Jones isn't, but you got to think Will Campbell, Harold Perkins. Those have to be first round guys, you believe. Omar Spates, I think, is in the conversation to be a first-round pick either this year. I'm not sure how much eligibility he has left, so it likely would be this year if he comes out. So that's, 4 guys right there, and then you're thinking Mason Smith, too. So that's 5 right there. So maybe 5 if you're counting the 2020 eligible guys for 2024 and 2025. So maybe they do, hypothetically, if you're counting the future, they may have 5 guys that could play or that could be first-round picks. So I think it's just an interesting thought. Brian Kelly said that, and it really made me think about it for a second. But I get where he's coming from. In a given year, I don't know who's done it. It's like Alabama, Ohio State have done it. Maybe was LSU close? I think there's only a handful of teams that have had, like, I think Georgia last year, Georgia in 2022. Handful of teams that have what's the record? 6 guys go in the first round from a team. I think Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State have had 5 guys go in the first round. I think Ohio State was the year they went to the national championship. Would have been 2014, so the 2015 draft. So I think and then Alabama, I think, was it Alabama 2016, 15, around that era, where they had a lot of guys like Derrick Henry. I guess Minkah Fitzpatrick was later, but Marlon Humphrey. So yeah, I mean, there's been teams that have done it, but I think that's maybe that's what he meant as far as 2024 is concerned. So if 2024 is concerned, you're talking about probably, well, Mason Smith is. I think I think that's factual that Mason Smith will be a first-round pick. That's just really the only thing that would hold Mason Smith back is a health concern. The other guy I would say is Omar Spates. So Mason Smith, Omar Spates this year. Who else is drafted? And then Malik Neighbors. So probably 3 guys hypothetically this year. Oh yeah, and I guess that could be your numbers. That could be the 6th guy, Malik Neighbors. So if you're talking about the future, you could have 6. I think there's 6 guys that have a first round being drafted in the first round potential. Now some of the true freshmen, that's kind of a ways away. That's really hard to tell as of now. But yeah, you got to believe that there's 6 guys counting the future could be first round picks. Probably 3 guys. Realistically this year, at Omar Spates, Mason Smith, Malik Neighbors of the draft eligible guys. But yeah, that's the big question. And I don't want to dive too deep into NFL draft talk, but could be Malik Neighbors could be the number 1 receiver off the board. You see, Zay Flowers is a guy that's getting more and more hype, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, this guy that went first round. The NFL is really starting to get more and more of appreciation for just guys that really excel at the slot receiver position. The slot position, it's a critical position. A lot of teams moving their best receivers. You see with the Bengals and the Vikings, they put Chase and Jefferson in the slot because it makes sense. You're closer to the quarterback. It's quicker to get the ball to you. So Malik Neighbors with the premium right now on receivers. Well, I shouldn't say premium on receivers, but I would say that the modern game, Malik Neighbors with his skill set translating in the NFL and how much slot receivers are still getting more credibility now. Malik Neighbors, you got to believe, is a guy that he could be the number 1 wide receiver off the board this draft. I know Marvin Harrison is kind of really staking that claim as of now. But yeah, Malik Neighbors, don't be surprised if he jumps. I think realistically he could jump easily to the number 2 or 3. Right now he's the consensus number 4 still. But yeah, another key guy for LSU this year, Savion Jones. So Savion Jones, high recruit coming out of high school. Savion Jones. When I watch some of the highlights of Savion Jones, I think of a guy who should be a starter this year, and it's really trending that way. You look at Savion Jones' skill set. It's a guy who really has the capability to, when he gets free, to really close on quarterbacks in a hurry. Does show the ability to get off of blocks and can work through traffic, take on blocks off the run and get off of them. So stout against the run. Savion Jones, a guy that's really excited to get his opportunity. I think this is a guy who is kind of like Brian Thomas. I think Savion Jones, you throw in that strong second tier of LSU football players, but a guy who, when he rushes the inside, especially if they use him on stunts where he can get a matchup. Rushing against the guard, has enough strength and quickness to beat him. He does show some speed to power. It's not great, but he does show the ability to do that. So strength in his game, has a really good, fairly natural feel for rushing the passer, I would say. So yeah, Savion Jones, a good all around skill set, I believe, and I'm excited to see what's in store for him this year. There's expectations for him. Brian Kelly said he's having a really good camp, so it'll be fun to see how Savion Jones performs this year. A guy that's going to get a full opportunity in 2013. But all right, what else do we want to discuss? So yeah, the running back. We'll talk the running backs. I know I've talked about the running backs quite a bit, but I think you get the feel Josh Williams is going to be the first guy out there against Florida State. How he performs, still to be determined, but Josh Williams, a scrappy, hard-nosed, tough guy that's has a lot of experience. So I get the feel that Josh Williams will be the first guy out there against Florida State. How he performs will be interesting. I don't think he didn't have the greatest game last year against Florida State. Makes you wonder if, obviously it's a new season, new team, but it makes you wonder if maybe they do try to give Florida State a different look as far as the running backs go, because they've seen Williams, they've seen Kane last year. Maybe they do try to use more of Logan, throw Logan Diggs at him, or throw a little bit more of a Goodwin, or maybe you see Holly or Jackson, some of the young freshmen in that game, just to kind of give Florida State some new, kind of a new guy to really to try to decipher his, to try to stop, I guess I should say. But yeah, Denver Harris, the news that he's not practicing with the team as of now. They hopefully will get him back this weekend. But yeah, Denver Harris, one of the stronger players. I mean, by strong, he's one of the better players in the LSU secondary. And we've talked a ton the LSU secondary, but the LSU secondary just is so fascinating to me, because there's a lot of guys that, like Brian Kelly brought up, he kind of talks, he's not a believer in a depth chart, and Nick Saban kind of talks about, Brian Kelly kind of has the same philosophy. He doesn't say this word for word, but they come from the same idea of guys are going to play so well. If guys practice well enough, they earn their way onto the field, which is true. But unfortunately for the LSU defensive backfield, there's only 4 defensive back spots, and you hear a buzz of a lot of guys doing really well. You hear Ashton Stamps doing well. You hear Deuce Chestnut, Zai Alexander. You hear good things from Denver Harris. Hopefully he gets back. Major Burns. Greg Brooks. So, I mean, that's Andre Sam. So you're talking about 6, 7, 8 guys that are doing nice things, that have unique skill sets and can really help contribute to doing something special for this team. So that's what makes you wonder what's the, I guess what I'm getting at is, what's the rotation going to look like in the defensive backfield? Like, are they going to make an emphasis to get Andre Sam on the field? Like, say I take Andre Sam, for example, because I think Andre Sam should start, but even if he doesn't start, how are they going to get him on the field? Are they going to try to bring him in the nickel in certain situations to try to blitz him off the edge? That's what they did with him a lot at Marshall. Brian Kelly talked about he's having a really nice camp. So I think, is that kind of the plan for Andre Sam? Are they going to try to get him in the game for some blitzing situations and to cover man-to-man? Those are the 2 areas he really excels in. Is that when they're going to try to make sure to rotate him in, to blitz him off the edge and cover man-to-man? So that'll be interesting to watch. Is Greg Brooks still the full-time starter at free safety? Now, I listen to Greg Brooks talk, and I really have a lot of respect for Greg Brooks. I think he's a super smart guy. I think he plays with a lot of passion. I think that he's a high-level competitor. But I think that, to me, is he, like, if the 6, 7, 8 guys I named, where does Greg Brooks rank? Is he number 5? Is he number 6 as far as you're talking about movement skills, talent? Now, Greg Brooks is a guy that's going to get a lot of benefit from his experience and being a starter last year, but you got to think that if Andre Sam and Chestnut and some of these guys show out so well, even Javian Tomiano too, another guy. It's just so competitive right now, and I think the way I should look at it is I would not get my head down if I don't win a starting job in the secondary for LSU, but I would be hungry, I would be ready, I would understand that you can make an impact on special teams. That's another thing Brian Kelly made an emphasis about. If you're not a first-round draft pick in the NFL, you probably better be a good special teamer. So let's take a guy like we'll take a guy like Denver Harris or J.K. Johnson. J.K. Johnson, I know, dealing with injury. If those guys don't win a starting job, I would really be doing everything I can to show out on special teams, not only for your team to help you win and achieve a championship and keep good field position, but also to try to secure some longevity as far as the NFL is concerned. You see the guys really can make somewhat of a career in the NFL. You look at Matthew Slater for the New England Patriots. So if you're not that first round pick, like Mason Smith's a guy, for example, is probably not going to have to worry about playing special teams. This is a guy that's just so disruptive on the defensive line, especially in the interior. Just has such a really good skill set combined with the size where you're not going to have to worry about playing special teams in the NFL. But to me, a lot of these guys on this LSU team are, even if they don't start in the NFL, I think they could be a really good special teamer. Like, I guess Greg Brooks, for example, to me, I don't think Greg Brooks has the overall talent to be a high-end level player in the National Football League. I think probably is one of those guys that get the label as eventual starter, but I think he's a guy that really could find a role for a team in the NFL on special teams. So we'll watch how Greg Brooks, watch how his season goes this year. We'll watch how he develops into the NFL. Talented guy, guy with experience, and him and Major Burns likely the starters at safety. We'll keep an eye on Andre Sam. Denver Harris, watch that develop, or we'll see how that develops, and then also J.K. Johnson too. So and then the quarterback situation going to be interesting this year. I like that Brian Kelly comes from the thought of just playing one quarterback. I've kind of shifted. I did. The 2 quarterback system really sounds fun, but it's one of those things where, like, it sounds fun, but also at the same time, it's you kind of just want to get into a rhythm with one guy, and hopefully Jayden Daniels takes another step in his development this year. I do like that a lot of the fan base is backing up Jayden Daniels this season, because to me, he's a guy who's gonna do a lot of he's gonna make a lot of plays with his legs. He's already proven he can do that. You just got to believe that the passing game is really going to be. Hopefully, he unlocks another dimension in the passing game as far as making some more downfield throws, more accurate, consistently accurate in the intermediate passing game. So expect big things out of Jayden Daniels, and can he be a strong leader in some close games? If you win a championship, you're going to have some close, tough games. Can Jayden Daniels be that guy in some close games to be a leader, to really pick his guys up if they're down at some point? Now, I don't see this as an LSU team with players that are going to easily get down, but sometimes you got to be that leader and pick some guys up. So Jayden Daniels, a lot of people expecting big things from here. Hopefully he can take another step as a passer this season. But I really want to hear from Mike Denbrock or Matt House, on how the defense is coming along. You kind of wish, deep down, I wish they did post a depth chart. I also wish I could go to practice, but I just kind of have to go by. What I've scouted of these players. Excuse me, I had to hit a little yawn, but I think that to me, that's what's interesting about this LSU team. And I kind of go back to the point where there's a lot like Brian Kelly touched on, a lot of guys are going to separate themselves. A lot of the things are going to kind of take care of themselves. What is the term? The cream rises to the crop. But also you feel like you also do at times you do kind of get the feel like you do just want a pencil one guy in as a starter. So yeah, I think that a lot of things are going to sort itself out. We'll watch keep an eye on the offensive line, how that continues to go. If the 5 guys that are projected to start, Dellinger, Turner, Frazier, Camp, Emory Jones, all win that job. So that'll be the interesting development if those 5 guys can continue or can keep or can all keep their jobs. It appears to be so, but DJ Chester, Marlon Martinez, you even throw in Mason Lunsford there as well. So, yeah, I'm going to wrap with that. Thanks for tuning in to Bayou Bengals Football. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show. Till next time, peace.